everybody. This is Pastor Brady Henderson, the pastor at the First Baptist Church in Gaston, South Carolina, and we are here today with episode 17 of the Menorah podcast ministry. For those who might be listening to us for the very first time, this is hosted by myself, and I'm sitting here with Alan Ott.
Hey guys, how we doing today?
And so just to remind our listeners, the purpose of the Menorah podcast is to share the light, speak the light, and send the light of Jesus Christ all across our airwaves. And so we are honored here today to be having a sit-down conversation, interviewing Miss Lauren Cantrell. Lauren, it is good to have you with us.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
So we just want to talk to you a little bit today. And Lauren, a lot of people in our church see you singing. They see you online teaching. They see you in person teaching, different avenues. And so the purpose of today's episode is obviously Alan and I know you, but we want our listeners to be able to know you and, know who's leading them in worship, know who's teaching Sunday school, and hear a little bit about your story. Because each person we've interviewed is different. I think it's interesting. You're the third person we've interviewed. We've only interviewed 3, and you're the third. But, Lauren, you and I have a big similarity. We are both upstate people.
Yes, we are.
So tell the people where you're from.
I'm from Gaffney.
So there's a big difference in Gaffney and Greer
Gaffney
now.
And Greer, yes.
For those that are listening, that's not a okay thing, but, it is what it is.
Yeah. We didn't really like y'all too much, but that's
we didn't
okay.
like y'all either.
You might want to clarify that for folks that don't realize that you're talking sports.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, talking football specifically.
Basically.
Yeah, basketball maybe a little bit. But anyway, just tell me a little bit about your testimony as far as when did you accept Jesus Christ as your personal Lord and Savior?
Okay. Well, as I've said many times, people have heard me say I grew up in a Christian home, and we were always at church. That was not ever a question as to whether we would go to church or whether we were going to be at church. We were always there. I grew up there from the time I was born in the same church.
Which church was it, Lauren?
It was Rehoboth Baptist Church out in the country in Gaffney. I guess when I was around 9 years of age, the Lord's kind of started working with me. I kind of started having some fears about that the Lord was going to come back and I wasn't going to be going with him, and my whole family was going because I knew they were all Christians. And but it was also a time when a lot of the young people in my church were going up and making professions of faith, and my mother talked to me and said, I don't want you just going up because your friends are going up.
Yeah.
So she really made me think about it and pray about it a lot. And so when I was 9 years old, I went up and accepted the Lord as my Savior, talked to my pastor, was baptized. And
so been following Christ ever since.
So I've been following Christ for a long time.
Well, Lauren, one thing you mentioned is that you said your parents brought you to church every time the doors were open. Mm-hmm. And for our listeners, especially our younger listeners, what she's referring to is Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, and any other special event or time. Yes. And so, obviously we don't do Sunday nights now. Right. Sometimes we do D groups, all that. But we live in a culture, Lauren, that has become church culture, and Alan will agree with me on this, has become pick and choose.
Right.
Okay, well, I'm going to go to Wednesday night, but I'm just not going to go to Sunday. Or I'm going to go to Sunday, I'm not going to go Wednesday, and I'm definitely not going to D groups or whatever, or Sunday school or whatever the case may be. So we just did a family workshop a few weeks ago with our young parents, and praise the Lord, had so many young parents there. What is your, because I was brought up the same way you were, in the sense of I didn't have a choice. Mm-hmm. So tell me how important that is. The child doesn't decide whether or not you go, correct?
Oh, no, we never did decide. In fact, I've said to some people that people don't understand this. Kids today don't understand this, but The Wizard of Oz came on one time a year, and it would come on Sunday night at 7:30, and we would have to beg months in advance, please let us stay home for that. And finally, after much thought, they would finally let us stay home, but we had to stay with our cousins that lived right across the road. So both families had to decide that they can stay home.
On a
we
Sunday
all went
night.
To the church, and it was a Sunday night, yes. And that was only once a year. I can remember being sick and my mother and daddy wrapping me in a sheet and taking me to Wednesday night church.
Oh my.
Yes. So, I mean, being sick didn't even get you out of going. And at the time, I may not have liked it as much, but I mean, it was just my life. It was
Yeah,
our
absolutely.
church was our whole life.
Yeah.
We lived 12 miles out of town, and we didn't go to town but once a week if we got to go then. And so church was our life. My
Yeah.
friends were there. All the people I knew, everybody in the community went to the church. That was just all I knew.
Absolutely.
Well, in that time too, the community really revolved around the church.
That's right.
And that's where, when I started school, I knew one or two people at school that went to church, but all those strange people, I'd never seen that kind of thing before in my life.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of unsettling for a child such as myself to experience all that. Most people want to get out and go, and I kind of not so much. So I kind of can relate to that.
Mm-hmm.
So what did you do in school? What did you take in school? What do you do for a living?
I went to Winthrop University, and which was Winthrop College at the time, but I majored in special ed and got a teaching degree, and I taught school for 28 years. I was able to retire after 28. I didn't have to do my last two, but taught special ed for more than half of those 28 years. Taught third grade a little bit, but that's what I did, was
Okay.
teach.
Well, one thing I want to ask you about the church you grew up in, and Alan, I want you to chime in on this too. How, for somebody like myself, or somebody that's close to my age, most people don't understand in our Southern Baptist churches today, you have a mix. For example, here we have blended worship service, offer different things. You go to Trinity, same deal. The different churches offer different things. It was not like that back then. Most churches did things pretty much the same way. So how much different was church? And I'm not saying different as in a wrong way. I'm saying what were the differences between the church you grew up in, not necessarily Rehoboth, but I'm saying the time of church you grew up in compared to the time of church you're serving in now?
I guess I would say that we basically did hymns. That was, and I can remember starting when we first did what they called canned music, the music that was already pre-recorded, and it was accepted, but, we did piano music 90% of the time, I would say. Even when I went to other churches, if we sang at other churches and things like that, you had to bring a pianist along with you because you were not going to have the music if you didn't have a pianist.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah, you never knew what state the musicians were in another church. Most of them were volunteer
right.
Oh, yeah.
in the community. I think here we're pretty fortunate to have had the musicians that we've had over the years, the talent and all that. But I too remember the first recorded music that we used at this church. If our song leader, was to try to teach us a new hymn or a new song that wasn't in our hymn books, oh, that was scandalous.
Yeah.
Oh, my.
My uncle was the music director at my church I grew up in, and my aunt was the pianist. His wife was the pianist.
Were they the ones that lived across the street?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
So, you didn't pretty much go out of the norm of singing hymns.
Okay.
Sometimes I guess maybe our choir music was probably some of the first recorded music we used.
Gotcha.
Some of that, like for a cantata or something.
Yeah, yeah.
And the choir sang out of special books.
Yeah.
They usually had a hymn in there occasionally, but they had special books they sang out of that the congregation didn't use.
And robes, right?
Robes.
We didn't have robes because we
Gotcha.
were a country
Yeah,
church.
yeah.
We,
I gotcha. Well, let me ask you this, and both of y'all can answer this, but how different, I'm wanting our listeners to understand how things, because if you look at Baptist history, things have changed more in the last 40 years than they have in the last 100, 200 years in Baptist life. Things pretty much stayed the same for a long time, and that's for another episode on another day. But what were pastors like? when you were growing up? How are they different? How are they the same? What was their preaching styles, personalities? Just talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, I guess, and my experience may be different from some others because mine was a small church. So most of our pastors, it was their first pastorate.
Okay, so y'all got the young guys.
Yeah, so we had
Okay.
younger people. We had some that maybe just had young children or just starting out having families and stuff like that. So, and as I was growing older, when I became a teenager and in my early 20s, I was friends with, most of them because they were my age.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I got to know them really well and spent time with them and stuff. So one pastor we had, his parents went to church with me when I moved down here and was at White Knoll Baptist.
Yeah,
His parents went to church with me over there, which was interesting to
Yeah,
to
for
know their son as the pastor and to know them as his parents and to go to church with them.
Absolutely, absolutely. Lauren, tell us about David. That's your former spouse, and tell us about William, which most people call Waffle.
Okay, David. My husband was a golf pro, and he worked at Hidden Valley Country Club. We lived there for a while when we first got married, and then he was at Calhoun Country Club for several years. I learned a lot about golf. I didn't know anything about golf when I got married, and so I learned a lot about golf and golf people and all that kind of stuff. We lived on the golf course for several years, and so that's where William grew up, his early years. And I lost him one day, and he had gone and gotten in a golf cart and drove on the front nine. So,
Oh, my.
And he was only about 5.
Oh, my.
So I knew right then we were having a problem. We
Yeah.
had a problem. My son is 28 now. He went to Lander College and graduated, and he now works at Enterprise, and he loves it. And he's at the airport in Greenville, Spartanburg.
Yeah.
So he's self-sufficient. That's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
A few years back, my husband, out of the blue, said, I want to move back to Gaffney. And I was like, I don't want to move back to Gaffney. And, of course, William was like, I want to move to Gaffney. And David was like, I want William to go to Gaffney High School and play football. And I'm like, that is not what I want. But anyway, long story short, we ended up moving back. And
Okay. So did Hidden Valley, is that the reason y'all came down here the first time?
he was already here when we married.
Oh, okay.
He was already established here and,
Oh,
and was
okay.
working at Hidden Valley.
But y'all met at Gaffney.
Right.
Gotcha,
right.
gotcha.
He
Okay.
was from Blacksburg, which is a little town outside of Gaffney.
Yep.
And a friend of a girl I roomed with in college, my roommate, and he were friends in high school. And
Gotcha.
they introduced us. So that was back in 1988, a long time ago. And was down here for a while, and then we moved back and was in Gaffney for a while, and then out of the blue, just very unexpectedly, David died. And so after William got out of college and all, it was possible for me to move back down here, so I came back.
Gotcha.
That's quite a story. I guess that kind of answered how you got here. Do you remember who the pastors were when you were here before?
Yes. When I first came to First Baptist, Gary Farmer was the pastor. And then when I came back, Joe Youngblood was the interim when I came back this time.
So you mentioned White Knoll Baptist.
Uh-huh.
So how did you find First Baptist of Gaston from White Knoll? Because I live in the White Knoll area. I live in Lexington. So, I mean, it's 25-minute difference there. So kind of tell us how you heard about it. Did the golf course have something to do with that? Just tell us a little bit about
Okay.
that.
I was living at Hidden Valley, and my sister lived down here at the time. And my mother's cousin was the pastor at White Knoll.
Oh, okay.
And it was a church that had started from Broadacres Baptist Church in Casey and Red Bank. It was a new church that
Church
had started.
plant.
It was a church plant. And so we decided we'd go over there and see how it was and get to see our family and stuff like that. So we ended up staying. My sister ended up moving to Florence after that, after about a year, but I stayed over there. And then after a while, just felt the Lord leading me away. I was really close to the pastor and his wife at that time, and so I knew the Lord was leading me to go somewhere else. And actually, I went to Trinity Baptist, and I was convinced that was where I needed to go. God said, no, that's
With
not where.
Was Don Davis there?
Yes. And so it just never felt right to join. You know, the Lord was just kind of telling me that that's not what I want. And I had come here a couple of times, and I had visited, and Bertha and Foster and her husband,
Bertha and
Bill, they came and visited me. And so, but I just never felt comfortable here. And then I ended up getting involved in a precept study with Helen King.
Shout out to Helen. Shout out to Helen.
Yeah, had it advertised in the bulletin, and so I asked her, could I join, even though I wasn't a member, and she said, of course.
Yeah.
So I got involved in that, and then got into Terry Pound's Sunday school class, and then the Lord just led me here. So
And the rest is history.
the
right?
rest is history. I was here and involved, and then when we went to Gaffney, it took me a long time to decide to give in, to say I'd go, and Mitch Marsh was our associate pastor at the time, and he counseled me a lot on that. And finally, I have to say, I was reading the Bible through, and it was in January because I just started. I was still in Genesis, and then the story about Jacob when he left Esau, got away from Esau, and he was wanting to come back home. And there's a passage, a verse in there where the Lord says, "Go back home, I will go with you." And when I read that, it was like, okay, God, I see you're telling me to go back home. You're going to be with me. And I went back home, and even though it was back with my family, I was excited to be with them, but it was just not where I wanted to be. I loved my church. I loved my work, and I didn't want to leave. But I got a job there, and we moved there and moved churches. And
Well, Lauren, let me ask you. So at our church, you wear many different hats, and I've got several of them listed out here. I hope I'm not missing any. I'm going to start out with your favorite, which is being a Good News Club teacher. So tell me a little bit about Good News Club.
I enjoy Good News Club. Once I get into it, it's just getting back in and being around the kids and dealing with behavior with the kids and stuff that tends to get to me. I know I have to let go and just because that's a great ministry that God uses us. And I'm so thankful that we are in a school district that will allow us to come into the schools, because most of them, a lot of school districts won't allow that.
Yeah, they don't allow that anymore.
But it's really a good thing, and I enjoy getting to know the kids. And, we've had some come because of that, So it's exciting to see a kid come in that you knew from Good News and see them walk into your church.
Awesome. So tell me about the praise team. What's it like, sir? I know you're in the choir too. But so what's it like being on the praise team? What's it like being in the choir?
I love being in the praise team. I love the choir too. I mean, when I first joined back several years ago, that was my outlet. That's who I knew. I knew the choir people. I knew my Sunday school. And that was about all the people that I could associate with, because it's just, we had so many members. I finally just decided everybody was kin to each other. So just watch what you say around anybody.
And in the last 3 years, there's been a little bit of a shift from that now.
Yes.
Which is interesting.
And it's interesting to me that people come to me and say, I don't know half of these people. And I'm like, you just got to get out there and get to know them, Right. So many of them come through my Sunday school class, though, and that's how I know them.
So tell me about your Sunday school class.
It's a good blend. We were talking the other day because somebody had asked me about it, and I was telling my class Sunday, I said that we've got 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s, and some have kids, some don't have kids, some have older kids, some have little kids, some are married, some are not married. So we just have a good blend of a lot of different types of people together. And I think we love being together. We just had a social last week, and we had probably about 50 people. And
there's a lot of people there.
Yeah, because most of all we have to do is we allow the kids to come. We have something for the kids too, because if I don't, then that knocks some people out of coming, and I don't want that to keep them from being able to socialize with us. So, and I love being their teacher and love leading them. So
Awesome. And that's the life class.
that's the life class.
Okay. So what does, as a Sunday school teacher, what does your prep look like on a weekly basis?
It's usually every day I work on it at least an hour or so a day. I also video the lessons, Sunday school lessons, and we try to stay ahead. So,
She's working on 2 lessons at once.
I'm working on several in a week.
So we're 4 weeks ahead.
Oh, my.
Well, we're 3 weeks ahead now. She has to keep all that straight in her head as to which lesson she's doing where.
Yeah. So do you have to review? So when the week of that lesson, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, are you reviewing it?
Yes.
Okay.
Usually at least by Friday and Saturday, I have to be reviewing it to
Gotcha.
remind. And it's like I told my class yesterday, I said, I'm going to tell y'all something, but I may have already told you, but I can't remember. But it may have been in a lesson that I videoed. So they just know. They just laugh and just go with me. They
Well, that's
roll
good.
with
They're
the flow.
flexible with that.
Yes.
Because they realize the online people need Sunday school too.
Yes. And I've had people that are in my class that just can't make it that Sunday text me and say, I'm watching you online or something like that.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Last thing, Miss Lauren, well, 2 more things. So this year's our 200th year, and most people know that. And so you were elected as the chairwoman of the Bicentennial Committee. That's a big deal.
Yes,
that
it
involves a lot of different things. And I'm very glad you were elected to chairwoman. You've done a great job this year. Just tell me, I know we're getting close to the end, but we still have the busiest 3 months to go
Yes.
in our span. So what all does that involve working with the Bicentennial Committee?
Well, we've had one whole committee, but we've had subcommittees from that. We have like a history committee. We have a merchandising committee. We have the hostess committee is involved with us, and then my committee, which is, we don't really have a name. We've called ourselves the First Baptist Church Chicks.
You got directory, you got cookbook. I know I'm doing merchandising, so that involves plates, that involves T-shirts, that involves all those kind of things. I know Terry and his team, Sandra Pound, has worked diligently on the history book that will come out after. We've got a revival coming up. It's a lot.
Well, we do. We're going to have a tent brought in for homecoming, so we decided to have a revival Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday before that. So that's the last week of August. So we've got everything lined up for that. We're working on the catering. It's air conditioned because I told them I wouldn't go if it wasn't. So
I love that. I thought that was good. That was good.
But it's busy. We've sent off the cookbook, so it should be back. Time frame on that was like 20 to 25 days, so it should be back soon.
Now, how much will those cost?
We're going to sell them for $10.
Okay. All right, Miss Lauren, I got one more question. I know today's episode's a little bit longer, but we just love hearing your story and what God has to say through you. What's your favorite part about being here at First Baptist?
Oh, my. I think the people, just the people. I love the people. And we have gotten so many new families in. I'm just amazed at how many children we have now and just the young couples, and I just love getting to know them and being with them. So, but I love singing too. I don't know if we even got to talk about the praise team, but I love the praise team. That's one of my favorite things. I always wanted to be a backup singer in a band. So now I kind of feel like I am. I don't have to be the main person out there, So I enjoy that. So.
Well, that's awesome. Lauren, it's been awesome getting to hear a little bit of your story. And so
Thank
we're going to go ahead and log off of episode 17 of the Menorah podcast.
Me.
Yeah, hey, we're glad you're here. I think Alan enjoyed it. Hope so.
Oh, always.
So anyway, hey guys, today is May the 23rd. Thank you guys so much for tuning in on this week's episode of the Menorah podcast. We will see you next week, next Thursday, for the last episode of May. Thank you so much. Have a good one.